Can you explain your objection to Bill 6?
I would not like to talk to you.
When we talk about Bill 6, it's not going to increase safety for people.
So do you think that the government should move forward with a bill like this to help facilitate recovery and treatment?
Yes, I do.
What we really need to do is build housing for everyone that is public and is not connected to forced treatments.
I'm all in favor of saying, hey, we're going to get you back on track. We're going to put you in here. And that's that.
I don't know the facts. I don't have that right now.
So you're here
I
for
only give
feelings.
facts.
Yeah.
No.
I'm Tamara Ugolini for Rebel News here in Port Hope, Ontario, about 100 kilometers east of Toronto along the 401 corridor. And behind me, there is a protest taking place. It's called the Rescind Bill 6 rally, and they state in their public posting of this event that homeless people need affordable housing, not jail time, and $10,000 fines, which sounds pretty inflammatory. They state in here that homeless people don't need to be punished and to not treat homelessness like a crime. So, of course, I took the liberty of reading up on Bill 6, and it's an act to restrict public consumption of illegal substances, and it does make some amendments to the Trespass to Property Act respecting sentencing. Now, built into this piece of legislation, which is largely ignored by the protesters behind me here, is A, the restricting public consumption of illegal substances aspect of the act, which is the primary function of it, but also the clauses housed within the act that provide a mechanism for individuals who are facing addiction or homelessness to be given supports and help to get them out of this perpetual cycle. So we're here to talk to some of the protesters, including one of the main coordinators, Missy McLean, who is most well known in Northumberland County and Cobourg specifically for bringing the Tweak Easy safe consumption, unsanctioned overdose consumption sites into the area and advocating for what seems to be just this perpetual cycle of drug enablement and contributing to the homelessness, drug addiction industrial complex. Let's see what they have to say.
If they put more people in jail, how that's going to stretch the system even further.
What is your opposition to Bill 6?
My opposition to Bill 6 is that it's proposing responses to crises of homelessness and toxic drugs in our community that don't actually address those issues. We know that the solution for homelessness is housing, and Bill 6 doesn't provide for anything to do with that.
There seems to be a clause in there that does, though, that provides support, a mechanism for support into things like recovery and housing. And as long as an individual can show that they are seeking those supports, then they won't be criminalized for things like using drugs outdoors in public spaces. How do you reconcile kind of your stance that this criminalizes homelessness with those clauses?
Yeah, so my understanding of Bill 6 is that one of the mechanisms it gives police the ability to do is to take somebody who is being criminalized for being homeless and drop them off at the door of a treatment center or some sort of service. I like to see people getting connected to treatment. What we know from the evidence is that treatment is effective when it is consensual, when it's voluntary, when it is personalized to that individual and it meets their needs. So forced treatment doesn't address the crisis of homelessness. It doesn't address the crisis of toxic drugs in our community. It actually puts people at further risk for harm and death.
Can you explain your objection to Bill 6?
I would not like to talk to you because I know you just lied. So.
Okay, so I'll feature your comments, however you'd like to say them. What's your opposition to Bill 6?
Are you from Rebel News?
Yes.
No comment.
What? You're at a protest. You don't want to make your stance heard? Standard.
I want people to understand.
So what's your opposition to it if it provides a good mechanism to get people into recovery and rehabilitation?
It doesn't really. What we really need to do is build housing for everyone that is public and is not connected to forced treatments. If you actually do a bit of reading, you'll see that most people who have drug addictions and are on the street, a good portion of them ended up with drug addictions after they ended up on the street as a way of coping with the fact that our governments and our communities have forced them to become homeless, and that this is their attempt to try not to lose their mind, and they are unfortunately suffering greatly because of this.
When we talk about Bill 6, it's not going to increase safety for people. Finding somebody who is already homeless and living in poverty, $10,000, how does that increase safety for anybody?
Well, it provides a mechanism for police to enforce the law and community safety and give people an opportunity to get into a recovery-oriented situation. And so why does your organization, Mom Stop the Harms, or you as, Tweak Easy, why do you never promote or try to facilitate that for people?
Oh, see, that's where you're mistaken. I help people attend treatment and recovery options every single day in my work. If you talk to anybody who works in the social services space in Northumberland County, they'll tell you that I am very active in helping people access in-bed treatment services, community-based treatment services. I help people access medical interventions such as opioid agonist therapies. I take people to the pharmacy almost every day so that they can get their medications. I help them connect with healthcare. This is what people don't understand. They think they know the work that I do, but they don't ask me about the work that I do.
Well, I'm here asking you now.
What that work entails is the full spectrum of harm reduction and health interventions.
They're closed. Sign on the door here says the office is closed today from 1 to 3 p.m. for staff training, which happens to be roughly the same time frame as this protest. Do you think that the government should move forward with a bill like this to help facilitate recovery and treatment?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, because they're saying it criminalizes homeless, but ignoring the other element of the bill that gets people, curbs the public drug use.
Yes. I see it all the time. It's unfortunate for people.
The drug use, you mean?
Yeah.
In Coburg, or where do you?
Coburg is really bad.
For people that are addicted and they need help, if a lot of them don't want to do something about it themselves. So I'm all in favor of saying, hey, we're going to get you back on track. We're going to put you in here. And that's that.
What's happening in Coburg specifically when it comes to issues of healthcare, when it comes to issues of housing, sheltering, social services, income assistance, those are not the responsibilities of the lower and upper tier municipalities. They're the responsibility of the province. And so what people have lost focus on is who holds responsibility for these services that are causing the distress in the community that they're bearing witness to.
Well,
those
province
responsibilities lie with David Piccini, Doug Ford, and the Ontario government.
And the province did boost, they doubled funding, I think it was 2023, for things like homelessness and social services to Northumberland County. So whether or not they're utilizing those funds appropriately, can you speak on how those funds are being utilized, especially as an employee of Northumberland County's legal center?
I'm not an employee of Northumberland County's legal center. Northumberland County doesn't have they don't run a legal center. So what I can't speculate on why the government is using funding the way that they are. All I know is that 80,000 people experienced homelessness in Ontario last year. We are on track to see that number almost double. Yeah. And if the government thinks that 374 beds is going to meet the need in one community, let alone the province, they're mistaken.
As we see in places like 310 Division Street, it's not working to curb any of the woes that are facing people in the community, and is actually contributing to continued and increased disorder on the streets, putting the larger community at risk and feeling unsafe.
Feelings aren't facts.
Well, the facts are that crime is up in the area, that vagrancy is up in the area, that the homelessness is only proliferating, and the millions of dollars that went into 310 Division haven't had any sort of tangible change or effect on that.
People at 310 Division, some people have found permanent housing.
That is not.
And so what is the number of people that have been placed?
I don't know the facts. I don't have that right now.
So you're here for feelings.
Yeah. No.
So there's a difference between homelessness and drug addiction. And Bill 6 targets primarily open air drug use. And then in there's an amendment to the Trespass Property Act, which gives people a mechanism to seek support. And if they are seeking those supports, then they will not be charged, criminalized, or penalized for. And so I'm just wondering how you're differentiating between those two things, and which comes first. Is it people suffering with drug addiction and who become homeless, or is it the other way around?
I can't make sense of your question.
Well, I think that's an obvious skirting of the drug crisis element that you seem to ignore.
Not everybody that is homeless had a drug problem.
That's what I'm saying.
Right. And so I'm sorry, I'm not understanding your question, but what I can say is that we do need a multi-pronged approach to addressing all of the crises of social disarray that are happening in our communities. And so why do we have to choose one or the other? We need to address all of them, and Bill 6 isn't going to address that, and that's why we're protesting it today. And
it seems like a really reasonable mechanism, though, to address those things and to get the crime and the chaos and the open air flagrant drug use off of the streets.
So we need spaces. This is the way that the Ford government is laddering their policies to continually target and oppress and harm people who are most marginalized in our communities.
I don't want to talk to Rebel News, thank you.
So you have no opposition to Bill 6?
Well, I'm here.
Yeah, so do you want to articulate why you're here?
She is articulating it very well.
Yeah, we spoke, and I don't know, it was kind of lackluster, the answers that Missy had.
This is not lackluster what she's saying.
We spoke before she got up to do the speech, and so Missy speaks for all of you collectively.
I am here because I oppose Bill 6. She just pointed out jailing a person is $133,000 a year. This government has done nothing to build affordable housing. Nothing.
Look up the Finland model, and you see when unhomed people are given homes and given the supports they need and want, the vast majority get their lives back together, and they end up curing themselves, and they end up going back to school. They end up getting jobs, and they end up being able to take care of themselves and pay for their own housing. But the housing needs to come first, and it can't be contingent upon threat of jail and that sort of thing. So if we build the proper housing and let them have people access to housing, they will then, because they have that innate security of a roof over our head, which we all take for granted, they will then seek what they need to get better, because no one wants to be sick. No one wants to be homeless.
The housing first model seems to be, well, don't worry about the addiction part, but it seems like we have to kind of approach them both at the same time.
Right. I agree with you. Yeah.
But they don't talk about any of that part.
No, they never do.
No. And I think that's a problem.
Yeah. It's been a problem for a lot of years. Where's our money going? Tax money.
And what happens, though, when the home gets destroyed or squalor unfolds, as we've seen in various houses downtown Cobourg?
The supports aren't there. It's a full package, right? So if you have housing that's well maintained, public housing well maintained, not at the behest of a slumlord, and we give the support they need for education, for healthcare, for learning how to do things they may have forgotten or never learned and ended up in the situation they are, you'll find the vast majority of people will not do that.
There's a lot of homeless people. They need help. Those who are not addicted, I say the government says, we're going to get you going back, okay?
Totally.
Now, this may seem like a forced issue, but a lot of them have pride. I understand that, okay? But it's for the better of all.
Missy McLean is delivering a speech behind me, and she just stated that she doesn't think this is how police thought they would do their jobs. But I beg to differ in that I don't think police signed up to administer endless Narcan. I don't think the police signed up to constantly give CPR to somebody who's overdosed and have to deal with the mental health and psychosis crisis that accompanies drug use and addiction. So yeah, I would say police haven't signed up for any of this.
People deserve love, kindness, compassion, and patience.
Sure, absolutely. But so do children who walk to school who now feel unsafe and can no longer do that independently because of the disorder that's unleashed on the streets. So, what about the seniors that no longer walk downtown? What about the children that don't feel safe coming or going to school?
Feelings aren't facts.
You just said.
Stop cutting me off.
Please.
Feelings aren't facts.
What do you think came first? The chicken or the egg? Is it drug addiction or homelessness? We have to have a conversation about both, not one or the other.
I think the drug addiction possibly is a festering. It's been there first, okay? People that are homelessness, they're people to me that have, they've tried and everything's went against them, and they've been left with living on the streets.
Right, if you're down on your luck.
Yeah,
then you'll be the first one to say, yeah, get me some help, get me some support, let's go.
If they need that, they got to understand that if the government says we're going to do this, and that's that, to help you, I'm all for that.
But I do know for a fact there are people who are living in the encampment who held down jobs and they couldn't afford a place to live. So they were living in a tent. They were then going to the Y, having a shower a couple times a week, going to the laundromat, cleaning their clothes, and then going back to work.
And 310 was supposed to help with all of that. What's going on there?
Don't know.
They got millions in funding, tens of,
don't know.
multiple millions.
There needs to be a real look at from the ground up of how we treat homes in this country, in this community. It isn't just an investment. There are people like us that are lucky that we can buy a home when we're relatively young, and we can use it as an investment towards when we retire and give money to our children. There are a vast number and a growing number who can't do that. So we got to look from the ground up of what does it mean to house people in our community, and how can we make that something that is, that recognizes that it is a human right. Housing has been recognized as a human right. So we as a community, we as a people, the government of the day needs to recognize that and take the responsibility for that.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
We've been covering the crime, the chaos, the disorder plaguing Canadian towns, cities, and streets for years. If you'd like to see all of our previous reports and chip in to support these efforts, please do so at fixourcities.com. That's fixourcities.com.